Good evening. I don't know if this is on. Is that on? Perhaps? No? Check. There it is. Fantastic. Good evening. Good evening. Well, it is raining a little bit, so we do appreciate that you joined us tonight for the second town hall. My name is Alicia Gillen. I'm the executive director of the Maumelle Chamber of Commerce, and we are so happy to offer this to the residents of our community. At this time, I'd like to introduce Pastor Chuck Owens to give the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. Let's pray. Father, you're good and you're great, and it is apparent to us by the grace you have given us. Lord, we thank you that by your grace we live in a place where we can have discussions like this, where we have the freedom to have a voice. So, Father, I pray tonight for our leaders, the leaders of our city, the leaders of our state, the leaders of our nation. God, that you guide them, that you give them wisdom, that you protect them. And Lord, I thank you so much for Jesus. And Lord, it's in his name that I pray. Amen. Stand with me as we say the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Many of our residents are unable to make it this evening, so we're very happy to offer the live streaming video that we will be able to broadcast on our Facebook page. In addition, any questions that our on-air viewers would like to get in front of our council or any of our panel can tweet us at Maumelle Future, at Maumelle Future. So that way we can engage those residents who have active and busy schedules, and we really appreciate that opportunity. We do have a full panel of people coming to speak this evening. Tonight, I would like to introduce, first and foremost, our moderator, Mr. Neil Moore, who will be wrangling us in a little bit, correct? Maumelle Vision for the Future, Marion Scott Coney. To discuss our ballot and bond comments, City Attorney Caleb Norris. City of Maumelle will be discussed by Mayor Mike Watson. Highway Transportation Department History, Dean Elliott. Financial comments by R.J. Mazzoni. And economic development comments by Jeff Hathaway. We hope that over the course of the past couple of weeks, we've had a lot of questions that were fielded to us. So we hope that this panel will help answer all those questions that our residents have. At the end of all of their short, very short, presentations, we will open this up to the floor. If you do have a question, please submit it up here. We just want to kind of reduce redundancy on the amount of questions or the same question. But anytime throughout the presentation, if there's something that you've thought of, go ahead and grab a piece of paper and get it down here. We want to make sure and get that answered for you. Again, we'll also be fielding those questions online in addition to that. So to get started, I'm going to turn this over to Neil Moore.
Could I have one, though? There it is. Hello, everyone, and welcome to round two. We expect everybody to be polite and respectful. I know that's a little bit out of some of your nature, but do what you can. I mean, we're having it in a church. Come on. I'm here to moderate and to make sure we stay on task. We're not here to yell or make inappropriate comments. The Razorback game starts at 8, so we need to wrap it up before then. That would be my request for all you presenters. We're all here to listen and learn, but we're going to do it in an orderly fashion. I'm not a proponent or an opponent necessarily of these taxes. I'm here just to get information just like you are. Next week I will publicly state how I feel about it. But the format's pretty simple. We've got a few presentations, then you'll have an opportunity to ask questions. Some have already been submitted. And you still have time to do that. If you have one, just write it down and slap it on the table. But the main thing, and we're not trying to screen the questions, we're just trying to avoid redundancy, so we don't ask the same questions over and over, although you do have that right as a citizen. And you may do that after 8 o'clock. And all these presenters will be here to talk to you as long as you'd like to stay. They'd love to talk about it, don't you, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Yes, he does. He loves it. But seriously, they will stay after and have one-on-one discussions if you'd like to do that. So We're also getting questions via Twitter, and Josh Price is manning the tweets. I'm sure so many people over, what is it, where are they? Where were we talking about? Audubon, you know, they're tweeting like crazy already. So they'll be coming out. So anyway, no shouting out questions, no comments. You'll have your say. This is not your chance to stage a personal protest. You may do that on Facebook, which many of you already do. So we'll hear from our presenters before we start answering questions. So I think first up, we have for the Maumelle Vision overview and recently appointed council person, Marion Scott Coney. So welcome, Marion. I don't know. Yeah, you can go to the big girl mic.
I get to go to the big girl mic. Is that on? Is it working?
Yeah.
No? Now? Now is it working? Okay. All right. We at Maumelle Vision for the Future support the strategic plan. The city spent a lot of money on this plan, and we had a lot of very fine and nationally renowned experts come to town, examine what Maumelle is and where it's going, and they came up with some conclusions. Well, the things that we're doing in these ballot initiatives is helping to reach the right conclusions based on that strategy that they had. If we do nothing, it won't be long before the needs of our citizens exceed our ability to finance them. So I don't ever want to be put in a position of saying, which service can I do without? Which service can I eliminate or reduce? That's not a choice that I want Maumellians to have to make. So we need to increase our revenue base. By developing on the north end of town near the Marché interchange, and by developing a new entrance on I-40 out at the end of Counts Massey, we have a lot of commercial development potential. The nice thing about that is it's perfect growth for the city. So that busy retail type scenario will find itself away from our wonderful, quiet core where we enjoy our park and shopping at Kroger and our small boutique type businesses. So the other advantage to that third entrance is going to be another safe way out of town in the event of a natural disaster. But also, traffic is like water. It will seek the path of least resistance. I don't anticipate people on like the north side of town driving clear across town and hitting that exit. But all of those apartments, hundreds if not thousands of apartment people who now come to the boulevard, they're going to be much closer to that other entrance. And it'll drain that traffic away from Maumelle Boulevard and more into that third entrance. We need to control our destiny. We need to take control of this. There's going to be a lot of talk about the financing of these initiatives, but they are just so critically important to the future of Maumelle. And as I said, we support the strategic plan. So thank you so much for coming tonight and showing an interest in these very, very important votes.
Thank you, Marion. Next up is our very capable and articulate city attorney, Mr. Caleb Norris, as I like to call him, counselor. Where is he? Oh, there he is. All right.
So up until I got out of court, probably at 5:15, I thought that what I would be doing is just sitting here and passively or responding to questions that y'all had. And so I don't really have a whole lot prepared, but I did want to, and I've been tasked with describing the bonds or the ballot issues. On the ballot, there's going to be 3 separate questions. The first question you're going to see is for or against the third interchange, and that is $15,595,000 all inclusive. A vote for this, if this question passes, what will happen is there will be a half-cent temporary sales tax that remains in place until those bonds are paid off. that sales tax money can only be spent to repay those bonds. The second ballot issue you'll see is for what I'm calling the sewer project or the wastewater project on the north end of town in the Morgan area. That's for $2,325,000. That also, if passed, would join the other half-cent sales tax. So for both of these issues, the maximum sales tax would be half-cent. If one of them passes, it's a half-cent. If the other one passes, it's a half-cent. If both pass, it's a half-cent. If neither pass, it's a 0 cent. I know there's been some questions about that, so I wanted to address that. The third issue that you have is what I'm calling the public safety tax. That is for a half-cent permanent sales tax that would go in perpetuity or until such time as the residents voted it off. That money can only be used for the things listed in the actual ballot. Now, this is what's called a special revenue tax. You cannot just use this money for anything. It must be used for one of the three things stated. One is public safety, and that includes a whole lot of things. But it says public safety facilities and activities including but not limited to the city's police and fire department, street and trail repairs, street lighting, and other related public safety facilities and operations. Now, there's been some questions as to whether or not this actually means that the public safety budget would be increased, and that's really an issue for the city council, but these particular funds could only be used for public safety. Does that mean then that the city council could use that? Let's say this raises X dollars. Could the city council then use the X dollars that this is replacing somewhere else? That would be a decision for the city council to make. But I think the intent would be public safety, and I think that would be the intent. The other two options is it can essentially be used to repay the bonds in certain circumstances that were addressed by the first two questions. So the way I like to think of it, and it is in layman's terms, is if we're having difficulty paying back the bonds with the other half-cent sales tax, this can sort of serve as the backup. And I believe, and I'm not the expert in this area, but I believe one of the reasons was that would help the city get a better rate by ensuring the investors in the bonds that they'd have some way to recoup that money. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I did want to say that my goal here is not to provide an endorsement or to impose these. There's been so much discussion about these issues, especially on Facebook, by the folks that have come out here. Some of you all have some really good questions, and my job is to try and answer those questions objectively. I did want to give a couple things that I think folks should think about, and the first is that I think we need to look forward. We have to realize that we are where we are, and the issue is not necessarily how we got here. That's a great issue when it comes time for an election to choose whether you want to reelect me or the city council members. That's the best election to look backwards to say if these folks are doing it the best way. But I was reminded almost 2 decades ago when I was in the Marine Corps, I had a roommate, Lance Corporal Michael McLaren, and his computer was busted. He did something to it and couldn't fix it. And so he called down the hallway to Meade, Brian Meade, who came over and was trying to fix the computer. And the thing Meade kept saying was, "Why did you do this? Why would you do," and I don't remember what it was, "why did you do X that broke the computer?" And Michael said, "I don't know. I won't do that again. I've learned my lesson." And Meade said, "Well," and he kept drilling about why did you do what you did that got us there. And I'm not even sure if Michael McLaren actually did anything that caused that. But finally, Michael says, "Listen, it is what it is, and now let's look at how we get it going. How do we take from where the computer is going forward?" And Meade, and I've used this line all the time, he says, "Well, here's what you do. You want to learn how to go forward is build a time machine and go back and don't do that thing that you did before." And if we could build a time machine, especially with 2020 hindsight, we can all say our lives would be a little bit different. But what we need to focus as we're going into the ballot in March is what is the best decision going forward. And two other things we need to think about is economic development. We hear that term a lot, but what does economic development mean to the city? The fact of the matter is we've brought in economists who've looked at the current situation, who says at build-out, if everything remains zoned the way it is, at build-out, the amount of expenditures at the current rate that it's going will exceed the amount of money the city is generating. For years, especially while I was on the city council, I said we need to increase the tax base so that we don't have to increase the tax rate. But this is a simple reality, is that either the city is in the future going to need more revenue, or they're going to need to cut services from where that we are. Now that's at build out. That's when every undeveloped piece of property that you see in town has been built. We are not there. We are not almost there. There is some time before that occurs. And what does revenue for the city means? It means ballparks, it means playgrounds, it means splash pads, it means roundabouts, it means extra traffic safety devices. Economic development to the city of Maumelle means more jobs located in Maumelle so that you don't need to commute to jobs in other locations. And I think, especially as far as I'm concerned, economic development means that we can continue and do a better job of recruiting, retaining, and equipping the best police and firefighters that we can. And so I think that when we think of economic development, we need to think of not just the private individuals that benefit, but what does that mean to the city, and more importantly, what does that mean to the community and to y'all out there? Lastly, we need to look at traffic, and the mayor may bring it up and I may steal his thunder, but I believe there's been estimates that a third interchange would carry approximately 11,000 cars a day by 2030, and I'll let him go into that more if he's planning on it. But that amount of traffic at that interchange necessarily means that either the current traffic on the boulevard would decrease, or the anticipated growth of traffic on the boulevard would not increase at the proper, or the rate it would if the interchange wasn't there. And really a fourth factor is y'all need to consider the taxes, right? No one likes taxes. A permanent sales tax is probably permanent and never going away. A half-cent temporary sales tax is only temporary so long as your elected officials and the people don't vote to extend that or to create a new tax thing. So those are the things that the factors that I think, whether you're for it or against it, I'm thrilled that people are here. It's a big time commitment to come out. And if the city had folks that were interested all the time like y'all were, it would be a better city, because your elected officials are just people that live next door, that have an interest, that have got involved. So I'd implore each and every one of you, whether it's elected office or to sit on boards and commissions, the city needs you, and we're only as good as those people who are willing to step forward. And with that said, if there's any questions later on, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. One of the things, if you ever just want to kill a Tuesday afternoon, what you may not know is our city attorney is also our city prosecutor. So every Tuesday, he gleefully goes into court and sits there through, I don't know, what, 20, 30, everything from the dogs bark too loud to traffic tickets to DUIs to even more serious things. But we do appreciate, I've sat there, it's tedious. Marion goes just for fun, which I think is very odd. But anyway, we appreciate your service in that regard. So next up is our Mayor, Mike Watson.
Thank you, Neil. I've also gone to court, excuse me, to watch Caleb or this previous city attorney, but every time I show up, the judge will say, "What's wrong?" So it's like I scare him when I show up, so I can't go very often. First, let me thank the First Baptist Church for allowing us to use this facility and for this town hall meeting. We couldn't have done it without them, and we appreciate everybody that came out on this rainy night, too. We appreciate your interest in our community. I also wanted to point out that we have representatives from our bond underwriter. We have Miss Leanne Bernay from Stevens, and we have Walter McSpadden and Kirby Moralia from Wright, Lindsay, and Jennings, who are our bond counsel on this project also. So they're here to help answer any questions, and we appreciate them coming out on this night also. I gave about a 20-minute talk last time. I don't want to do that again, but I want to give you a little bit of history and talk a little bit about what Caleb was mentioning. But this study, or this project, the interchange project that we keep referring to as the interchange, was started in November of 1996 with a feasibility study. I moved to Maumelle in 1996, so this is not my idea. I mean, this is just something that, as being mayor, that this has been tasked to me to continue on. So they did a study in 1996. They did another study in 2003. Both of those studies show that, yeah, we needed another access point out of Maumelle. So then in 2005, the city leaders at that time went to Washington, D.C. and got an earmark, $2.3 million to design the interchange. So when that occurred, basically it became a City of Maumelle project and not a Highway Department project. Because the earmark that comes from D.C. comes through the Highway Department, but it came out of Washington, D.C. Everybody knows in about 2007, earmarks went away at the federal government level. So therefore, there's no earmark that can be acquired for this project. So since that time, since I was elected in 2007 or 6, took office in 2007, I've been working on how are we going to finance the construction of this project. And so that is where my efforts have been as we got it designed. And I will tell you, if you'd asked me in 2007, would we still be talking about this interchange, building it in 2018, I'd have told you you were crazy. But because of its location being near wetlands and having to jump through all the hoops that you have to jump through environmental processes through the federal regulations, we just now are at our 90% rate done, our 90% plans done. This is the set of plans that we've developed. It's 190 pages thick, and it's just for the interchange. Doesn't include the Counts Mass extension, because people seem to get confused about that also. They said, hadn't we already paid for that? We paid for an extension of a roadway that was approximately a mile long to get to this location, because the Highway Department wasn't going to approve an interchange that didn't have a connecting roadway. So for the people that are saying, well, why did we build the road to nowhere? It's currently to nowhere, but it's going to be somewhere. It may not be this year. It may not be in 2020. It may not be in my terms, but it's going to happen. The interchange will happen. But the environmental assessment documents were completed in August of 2011. So we started working on that right after the engineers were hired in 2007. Started working on the environmental assessment document. It was approved in August of 2011. The interchange justification report was approved in November 2013, and now we've developed the plans. We're 90% done with the plans. We're ready to move forward with construction. Why not move now? Excuse me. Why not go forward with construction? Went to the Highway Department, asked them for the funds, at least 50% of the funds. They said it's not a high enough priority for us, so you're not going to get any funding till 2021 on this project based on our current plan, unless they could get additional funds through the highway tax that they've talked about several times at the legislature to have it brought forward, or through maybe the infrastructure plan that President Trump's proposing. But the money is not currently there to fund this project through the interstate. So I brought it to the council. I mentioned it in August. I brought it to the council. They put these initiatives on the ballot for the people to decide if you really want this project or not, along with the Morgan Sewer project that's been added there. And as our city attorney capably told you, I keep hearing we're going to go to $1.50. I hear it on a radio show. But no, we're not going to $1.50. If everything passes, it's 1 cent increase, and you're already paying that down the road in North Little Rock. If you go shop at Walmart in North Little Rock, you're paying 9.5% down there, which is what ours would go to if all of these initiatives pass. And also, I mean, I've been asked the question, well, why, you were telling us all along you were going to get 50% from the Highway Department. I had support on the Highway Commission, but I've lost that support. They've rolled off or they've left for various reasons. So now the 5-member highway commissioners, the 5 members that are there, I currently don't have their support for the project. There's one that I'm trying to get the support from, but it's 1 out of 5 because they represent various areas of the state. And so they've all got their pet projects that they're going forward, even though they're supposed to represent all the state of Arkansas. But they do move forward with projects from their area. We talked about talked a little bit earlier about the Morgan Sewer Project. If we put the sewer in Morgan, it would allow 100 acres to be developed. A few years back, before they built the Bass Pro Shop at the other end of 430, Miss Judy Keller and I met with Johnny Morris on a Sunday morning. Johnny Morris is the CEO, owner of Bass Pro Shops. He looked at the site in Morgan area to possibly put the Bass Pro Shop there. But we didn't have a shovel-ready site. We didn't have sewer available. So there was a lot of things that convinced him he really didn't move somewhere else. And he kept asking the question, would somebody from Bryant drive to Maumelle to shop at a Bass Pro Shop? And of course they would. Well, the same is true also. So he was thinking, well, if somebody's in Maumelle, they're going to drive to the other end of 430 to go to Bass Pro Shop. But we lost that opportunity, maybe not totally because of the sewer, but it hurt us that we didn't have sewer capacity. I've heard there's been hotels looking at that site. They can't locate there because there's not adequate sewer capacity. Those properties would provide economic development for Maumelle. Can I promise you that there's going to be economic development at a new interchange built on Interstate 40 or even at the existing Morgan interchange if we do these developments? No, I can't promise you anything. I can't promise you we won't be in a recession 2 years from now. But if you look at most other interchanges in a populated area in Arkansas, development occurs at the interchange. You've got a traffic volume there that's unbelievable. It's over 80,000 cars a day down I-40. So those number of people have got to go get gas. They've got to shop at a store somewhere. If it's on their way home, they may stop there. And so that's what developers look at, and hopefully Mr. Hathaway can explain that a little better. They look at traffic counts and population centers and things like that is what entices them to locate there. The other tax that's there is the public safety tax. And I just want to throw you out a couple of numbers. And the community service fee, I don't mind the community service fee. I never have. It was $24 when I moved here. It's now $6 a month. But some people hate that community service fee. And so this is a way to eliminate the community service fee, replace it with a half-cent sales tax. Then you don't get a bill quarterly, and we don't have to try to collect from the people that don't want to pay that bill. And so, hopefully that would allow collection to be a little better. But what I want to point out is that it is not your entire bill that you get. The sanitation fee is still going to be there. So you're still going to pay $15.50. And don't call that the community service fee because that was never intended as that. That used to be paid to a private hauler that picked up trash in Maumelle. But now it is part of your bill that you receive from the city of Maumelle. But it's not a community service fee. It is your sanitation bill for us to send trucks to your house 3 times a week. But what I want to point out is that Caleb mentioned it a little bit about how the money could be used. Combined police and fire budget for 2018 is $6.5 million. So we bring in about $2.2 million, $2.3 million on our current 1 cent that goes to help offset police and fire. If this half-cent passes, it adds another $1.1 million to that. But that's still only $3.4, $3.5 million. The combined police and fire budget currently is $6.5 million. It's almost half of our entire city budget of $13.4 million. And just as a comparison, when I took office in 2007, we had 26 police officers and 16 firefighters. Total of 42 uniformed personnel. In 2018, we have 37 police officers and 34 firefighters, a total of 71 uniformed personnel. So I don't think the city has wasted your money. I think they've brought in the best professionals they can to to be your police officers and your firefighters and keep you safe at your home. But just some things questions that come up, I'll try to address some of them to here tonight. But this is a time that we get to control our own destiny. We've got the plans almost done. Let's keep moving forward, and let's get this interchange under construction within a year, and then be able to use it in about 18 months to 24 months after that. So I'll be around for questions, or I'll probably get to answer a lot of the questions that are asked here tonight. But just wanted y'all aware. But I've got all the books. If you want to see them, I brought all of the interchange justification report, the environmental assessments, the 2 feasibility studies that were done. Like I say, here the plans are. They need to be reviewed by the highway department, finish them, and then this project can go to bid. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. What would it cost us to get a copy of those plans? A couple of bucks? Yeah. Can we get copies of that?
Yeah, I'll send you a bill.
Next up is Dean Elliott, a longtime Maumelle resident. I see he's outside. I'll vamp till you get here. Dean is with Dillard's in the corporate realm and has some insight for us from the highway department. Is that correct? Is that what you're going to do?
I don't think anyone would ever say anything I have is insight.
Okay. Dean Elliott.
I'm Dean Elliott. I've lived out here since '91. I'm going to try not to repeat too much of the mayor's visit with us, but in 1991 moved out here, got on the city board in 1996, and as the mayor referred to the study, there's a study that's old black and white, and I've got it dog-eared. We've been looking at routes for a separate entrance or exit, or an exit from entrance to Maumelle since prior to my time on the city board. Excuse me. I left the city board, and folks of Maumelle and some of the rural areas were either fortunate or misfortunate enough to cast a vote for me for the legislature. I served on the Transportation Committee and began to work with the Highway Department a little more diligently than I did on the city board. As Transportation Committee, most of their legislation went through the Transportation Committee. I began to work with them and talk to them about this third entrance. Well, there's never been much excitement from the Highway Department on helping Maumelle on anything. I thought maybe we could work with them. So worked with them on the Transportation Committee. Nothing came of that. Then I went over to the State Agencies Committee, Revenue and Tax, and maintained my relationships with the Highway Department, always talking about Maumelle. They've never, again, I repeat myself, there's never been an interest in that. We've looked at different routes, different funding mechanisms. We did, as the mayor mentioned, get an appropriation at the federal level for the engineering of that route. Part of the engineering and design meant a study, and they studied 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 different routes. So I get people that say, well, why don't you go here and over there, and maybe let's go back this way. I can promise you it's been studied. This is the most efficient, economical, and most easily permitted route. So as we get to talking about this, the route has been decided mainly because of geography, wetlands, land ownership, and things like that. So people say, oh, we don't like the route. Well, I'm sorry, that's the only route, that's our option. So then fast forward, Governor Hutchinson gets elected governor, and I'm asked to serve on his transition team, specifically as a liaison to the transition team to the Highway Department. And we studied the Highway Department. We looked at revenue streams. We looked at expenses. We looked at priorities. And I got to be even closer to the commissioners and the director and continued to talk about Maumelle. There's no appetite for them to help us. We've been on a list. They've told us, oh, when funding is available, and we said, well, what if we get 40%? They said, well, that'll move you up the list a little bit. What if we do 50%? What if we do 60%? There's never been a commitment to get us that road. So when we talk about what efforts have you made, the community with the mayor, former city representatives, former congressmen, former senators, current governor is in favor of this road. We need the road. And I can't give you the perfect solution. We can't give you the perfect solution. We can give you a solution that works. I stand in front of you as a former legislator, Republican legislator, who opposed every fee and tax increase for 2 straight sessions. I was one of 3 that did that. So it's not easy for me to come up here and support this tax. But when you look at it and you look at the route, this has to be the route. And we can't even get a commitment from the highway department to put us on a list to possibly get funding for any route until 2021. So at the earliest, with a 2 or 3 year construction period, we're looking at 8 years from now. That's 8 years when we have run out of any potential revenue stream, commercial development or residential development. And folks say, oh, we don't want commercial development. The beauty of it is it's not in our backyard, but the revenue comes to us. The shoppers come to us. The revenue comes to us. And I trust these city leaders. The mayor mentioned earlier, or actually I guess it was the city attorney mentioned earlier, that how do you know the bonds will be retired? Well, number one, they will be by law. There's a revenue stream backing them. But number two, the tax is temporary, and it is temporary unless the voters vote to make it otherwise. The city council can't make it permanent. Only the voters of Maumelle can make it permanent. It expires when the bonds are retired. So I just came up here to give a little brief history. A lot of folks out there have said, oh, no one's tried. There's not a good route. There's not a good funding mechanism. Folks, we've tried. We have tried and tried and tried for 25 years. I'm tired of trying. I think this is the only way this thing gets done in some of our lifetimes. And I would appreciate any questions at the end, but it's been something I've worked on, and I would appreciate folks getting out and voting for this. I think it's the best thing for Maumelle, and I think if we don't continue to look to the future of Maumelle, we'll be stuck, and the city will begin to stagnate. This is the only thing that gets this thing built for 100% sure. This gets built if this passes. And that's the only sure thing we've got on getting this third interest to Maumelle. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dean. Next up is a recent applicant for the Alderman Ward 2 position. And I hear if Marion wasn't so charming, he would have actually been picked. Is that true, Marion? Maybe. But he's going to address something that I think has been on all of our minds, and Dean did allude to it, in that we're concerned about the long-term debt. Is this something we're going to pass on to our kids and grandchildren? Well, I don't care. No, obviously we don't want to build up a huge debt. We can't. But R.J. Mazzoni has studied that, and he's going to make some comments on it. Thank you for coming.
Thanks. Good evening, everyone. My name's R.J. Mazzoni, and tonight I'm going to talk, like I say, the long-term debt reduction. First of all, to say I'm not part of the Maumelle Vision for the Future. Try to be part of the city council, maybe next time. I'm not a financial advisor, but math is math, and that's what I looked at. Can we crunch the numbers and get there? So you're probably asking, what am I doing up here? Well, like many of you, asking the same questions you are, is whatever happens with this election, this is going to have long-term strategic impact for the city of Maumelle. And if this doesn't pass, we're going to have a lot of debt and a lot of traffic. If it does pass, we're going to have more debt, but less traffic. I wish I knew how much traffic that it would decrease. That would be great, looking at the crystal ball, but I don't. But I do know we do need another exit because we're growing, and last time we had like 1,000 more buildings coming. That is going to increase our traffic even more. So the only thing I could do is look back and go, okay, can we afford this? Because that's really the big question. Taxes and debt, and we have some of both. So a position in Ward 2 came up, so I put my name in the hat and presented my vision. So basically, as a taxpayer, we want the council to understand the burden we have with all the taxes that we have and all the debt to pay off. However, we need to trust the council that they're going to have our long-term interests in play, so when these bonds end, we're going to retire them. We're not going to have other projects come up that aren't quite as important. And I think if you look at the numbers, they are in our favor. We currently do have a lot of debt. For at least the next 12 years, and this is based on just the Maumelle, all the predictions on the official bond statements that came out, until the 2015 bonds are paid off, we are paying, without anything else, $3.2 million a year to service this debt. So to break it out, the 2012 bonds, that's about $500,000. The 2015 bonds, that's $1.5 million. And for the call takeover, we have to pay them, it's about $1.2 million. So that money is just drained from our economy that we don't get any benefit from here, except obviously what was built. If the interchanges comes through, it'll be an additional $1.2 million, which is about what the taxes will bring in, for a total of $4.4 million annually. That's a lot of money. That's twice what we're bringing in for income tax or some sales tax, and we can go around, and it looks bad that we can't afford it. But look deeper in the numbers. I went back from 2012 up till last year and charted out our progression of sales tax. Annually, we increase by 3.3%, and math is almost done. So, assuming that, I then went and started calculating our payoff schedule. Just simple math. I assumed an average of 3%, which last week before I did my presentation seemed on the different websites about the average percentage rate for municipal bonds for a municipality like us. If we do that, we could pay off these bonds just with the sales tax alone in 15 years. And that's assuming absolutely no growth from the exit or from the Morgan part, other than just our normal average historical increase in taxes. Then I said, well, let's look at it another way. What if we do get some stores and businesses coming open? Because hopefully that's what's going to happen. So I try to take a conservative route, and I figure we wouldn't really start seeing anything till about 2023, by the time we get all the construction complete, time for everything built out. And to be conservative, I just put in a one-time extra bonus in there of $400,000 additional income. No more, and then just increase that with the same percentage. If we do that, we'll be paid off in less than 12 and a half years. So that's a far cry from the 20 years. And if you get more development, it'll obviously go less. So this is when we are going to be in a great position. The 2015 bonds will have been retired by now. They're scheduled to be done by 2030, and that's if we paid the minimum amount. So I don't have the current balance, but if we're ahead of that, they'll be retired even sooner. So with that bonds paid off, and now these bonds paid off, we will have an additional revenue stream for all the taxpayers of Maumelle of $2.7 million. This is money that we have now, or we will have then, that we don't have now, to add into our economy. So now we have the added benefit of adding more money into our economy, and our tax rate, once we let that expire, will come down, and we will be lower in sales tax rate than any of our neighbors, and we won't have an A&P tax that really increases the price of food when you think about it. So that will make us extremely competitive, and if there's a chance to really build large-scale businesses at that point, that's when they'll come. So all we need is to be disciplined in our planning and have a strategic plan. Because yes, there will be emergencies and capital investments that come up in the next 10 years. It's going to happen. But we need to identify and prioritize them now so we can plan for them in the future. And as all these taxes come in, even our base will grow, other than just, because that will affect our normal tax rate, we can set aside that money to be able to offset these costs and set in. It will take some discipline, but when it's done, we are going to be in a great spot. So that is all I have. I have the math if anyone's really interested to sit and talk with. As they learned from the council meeting, I can talk math for a while, but that's it for me.
Thank you, Mr. Mazzoni. Is it, you also, and he knows what we look like from above, because he trains C-130 pilots, is that correct? Have you flown over a couple of times? Yeah, so the big old giant birds that circle around, he teaches those guys. So, hey, thanks for not letting them crash and stuff. And thanks for your service. Another issue that I think is, to me, it's really the most important, and Mr. Mazzoni hit on it, and that is, what is the potential of our revenue? You know, I drove down Maumelle Boulevard the other night at like 9:30, and there was the epicenter: Chick-fil-A, Sonic, Kroger, Walgreens, liquor store, U.S. Pizza, and Starbucks. But that's it. And to create more revenue, there has to be more here. And I think Mr. Mazzoni hit on that very well, and I think our next speaker is probably going to get into that as well. Help me welcome Jeff Hathaway with the Caldwell Banker Commercial Hathaway Group.
Thank you. First, you should be really, really proud of your city and of this town hall meeting tonight. I don't live here. I live in Little Rock. I've been a lifelong resident of Little Rock, but I've been very active in business for a long time and in community involvement and civic involvement. And I can tell you, with a much, much larger population in Little Rock, I don't ever see this much turnout for any kind of an issue. So for you to be out here supporting this, it shows that you're or just here to learn about this. It shows that you care a lot, and you should be proud. So who am I and why am I here? I'll try to address that right off the bat. I'm Jeff Hathaway. I'm in commercial real estate. I've been in commercial real estate for 35 years. I've always been a Little Rock resident, but my practice is throughout Central Arkansas, and that certainly includes Maumelle. I've been involved in dozens of real estate transactions in and around the Maumelle area over my career. And what's my role, or why am I here? It's really a limited role. As Neil just said, I'm here to talk about whether or not there might be an impact from these proposed improvements on economic development, improved and increased economic development in your city. And I don't have a dog in this hunt. I'm not here because I'm selling some land for this. I'm not here. I'm not going to be paying. I'm not a resident of the city. But I was just asked because people in town know that I don't have a dog in the hunt, and they know that I know something about commercial development and have been involved in it from various angles over the years. So they asked me to comment about this. I've been very interested in hearing the discussion tonight. Obviously, I know a lot less about this issue than most of you here. I don't live here. I am certainly not participating in the campaign that's been going on, but I do have a few thoughts. First, I think it's worth noting that fixing or meaningfully addressing the traffic in your city in and of itself can be a trigger for new development in the city, throughout the city. And numerous times in my showing of property, I've had businesses, retail and other, tell me that they don't want to locate too far from I-430. They don't want to go into town because there are times of day when their customers or their employees simply can't get in and out of their business in a satisfactory way, and they've chosen to hug the interstate, so to speak. And it's all about accessibility for retail developers and their customers, retail tenants. And in Arkansas, that accessibility is primarily vehicular, not pedestrian. And if traffic is moving, then retailers see that movement as access for their customers. So my first point is just simply that it's not just about a site on the interstate here or a site on the interchange here. It can be an improvement in commercial development for your entire city. Secondly, I just want to kind of address something that I guess is pretty obvious, but I saw that there's been some research done and that it's been determined, or I guess probably known for a long time, that Maumelle has a much lower per capita sales tax revenue than other communities around central Arkansas. And that's certainly no surprise, and I just want to make sure that everybody knows I've seen it because I work in numerous different communities. It's a typical bedroom community issue. There's a quality of life here that is great. It's great to live here. That's why you all live here. People move here. They have moved here for a long time. There's been a lot of great growth. As that has taken place, there's a need for services and for infrastructure, and to provide that, you need a broad source of funding. And if there's not a sufficient amount of retail, you're going to be missing out on that sales tax revenue, and it just is a burden to the city. You've seen that demonstrated here in Maumelle. I think it's even more of an obvious effect here because you have you had a large chunk of undeveloped land in the city of North Little Rock adjoining you on your southeast boundary. Had willing sellers there. Happened at a good time when certain retailers were looking to come into the market. And so you've just had, and they were able to just be that much closer to the interstate and have that much less of an impact of the I guess what you basically would call a twice-a-day bottleneck that occurs. And so that has just made this an even more of a sore point for you all. But you are not the only city that is eagerly seeking to have new commercial development so that it can build its tax base up. We've seen it. Sherwood's a perfect example. Sherwood's been trying so hard to get more hotels up and down the interstate for a long time for this very same reason. Number three, the reason that I guess I'm probably here is because I think people want to know from a commercial real estate standpoint, they want to ask me, if this new interchange and these new sewer improvements are built, number one, is it really going to bring new commercial development into the city of Maumelle? Number two, how much is it going to bring? And number three, when is it going to bring it? I'm happy to tell you that I have answers to all three of those questions. Number one, yes. Number two, I don't know. Number three, I don't know. I'm sorry that two of the three were I don't know, but I'd be crazy and I would be reckless to try to stand here and tell you the number of square feet that's going to be developed or the number of stores or the amount of new sales that would come about because you build a new interchange. And I'd be even more reckless if I tried to put a time frame on it. So I'm just being honest when I say I don't know. However, I've been helping folks around central Arkansas buy, sell, lease, and develop commercial property for 35 years. And this is personal opinion, but I don't have the slightest doubt in my mind that A, Maumelle has very little chance of landing new commercial projects within its border if you don't do the interchange and the sewer improvements. And a very good chance if you do build the interchange and bring the sewer as proposed. It might be started in a year or two. It might be started in 5 or 6 years. That's impossible to predict, but you can be very sure. I'm very sure, and as a caveat, I'm assuming that there are willing and reasonable land sellers in the picture. But you can be sure, given that assumption, that people who make a living analyzing traffic data, income data, demographic data, and creating projects where stores and restaurants can come buy land, lease land, rent buildings so that they can serve new customers, those people, commercial real estate developers, are going to be trying to put deals together at the new interchange and at the Morgan exit. I can't guarantee that everything they try to put together is going to happen, but I can assure you that the attempt will be made. And the odds are pretty good that you'll not only have new places to eat and to shop, but they'll be good places, and they'll be frequented by many people who do not live in Maumelle. The key really is making land that's in your city or can be in your city or will be in your city that is by the freeway and seen from freeway traffic accessible by the cars that see it every day. And that's what this interchange will do. It'll create a situation in which large visible sites can be accessed by, the way I see it, accessed by four groups. First, by Maumelle residents that are simply going from their home to go shop and eat. Secondly, by Maumelle residents and workers that are going to and from town and using services on the way. Third is I-40 through traffic. There are a lot of people, so I think Mayor Watson said 80,000 that are going right by that site. It is just obvious that they are going to stop and shop and eat and buy gas and whatever's available there. And the fourth category would be people that are from Little Rock, North Little Rock, Conway, and other places that are going to use I-40 to make a short drive to where the action is, just like they're doing right now to the Bass Pro and the Gateway development in South Little Rock, or to the McCain Mall area, or even to the new shopping centers that are in Conway. So remember that retail is all about better access. That's really the key, and that's what these projects are designed to make happen. So this is not purely a site-specific situation. I really do think it's a situation where the projects will allow traffic to move all through the community better, and that will create other places besides just these two sites where new commercial development will take place. So this is not a situation where anybody can do a really scientific projection about how much real estate will be developed and exactly when it will be developed or who will be there or who the stores will be. But I think you can look around central Arkansas and see some examples of places that are on the freeway. They did have new infrastructure put in to make it more easy for cars to get in and out of the site, and now they're enjoying a lot of really good services that are provided to the community. And of course, in your case, what that's going to do is provide a lot of new sales tax revenue, as the other people have discussed for you. I would just close by saying that as an outsider who has really, I'm not a Maumelle resident, don't have a business that is located in Maumelle, but I think that this seems like a win-win situation. I think if I were in your shoes, it would be something that I would, especially based on some of the information that I heard tonight that I didn't already know, I would really be looking at this as something to support. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Let me just have you stay there. I'm going to ask you the first question. Since you're there, I'm going to ask you the first question. Oftentimes, Maumelle is compared to Bryant. Many of the numbers are compared. Do you see that as one of your examples, that Benton-Bryant corridor, and what they've realized with the development along that freeway?
I would say that there are some elements of that are similar. I don't really see it as a direct parallel. It just seems to me that in Saline County, Benton and Bryant, the freeway has been going right through where those two towns are for a long time, with lots of interstate access. There's been plenty of ways to get it on and off. They haven't really had what you would call like a super site. They haven't had a place where you could really create a really large project. So you've got piecemeal retail development up and down the corridor. But I think that's a decent comparable example. I really think maybe the Bass Pro Gateway Town Center development at I-430 and I-30 is probably a better example. And you can look at this a lot of different ways, but I have some history with that site, and some of you may be aware and may remember if you've been around a long time. That property was purchased in about 1980 or maybe the late 70s and was going to be the Otter Creek Mall. Well, the Otter Creek Mall never did happen, and the property went through various attempts to make something happen. But to me, what was really the key was it was at a good location. It was at the intersection of two interstates, but it had some serious access issues and some challenges. And eventually a developer got control of the site, and through some participation, I think, with the highway department and so forth, but a lot of privately developed funding, privately funded development, got better access to that site, got it to where you could get off directly onto the site by going south on I-430 before you had to get on I-30, and all of a sudden everything happened. And it's now it's not even through yet, but there's a really strong development out there at that key intersection. And I'm not saying that you'll get the same exact kind of development to take place here, and I'm not saying when, but I think it could be a model for what could happen in Maumelle.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hathaway. If you could guarantee us at Trader Joe's, I think this thing will take off pretty quickly. It seems to be a magic, or a Costco, I think, either one of those. How we want to do our questions, you just want me to throw them out there and see who we should direct them to? I can do that. Our first question, Maumelle taxpayers will be the only people, now I don't know the accuracy of the question, I'll just ask it as it's written. Will be the only people required to pay for building an interchange on a federal interstate highway. Have other cities done that? Anybody who wants to take that?
There's a match that generally is required of the cities. Now, I don't know if we're the only one that's paid 100%. I would doubt that. But generally, all localities contribute to some sort of match to any project that's funded.
Here's an interesting one. I don't know who wants this. Is really more of a logistics traffic question. As you know, the traffic regularly backs up from I-430. Have y'all heard that? With the right lane heading into 430, many in the past have thought, well, if you'll just build 2 lanes into 430, it'll fix that. Never understood that solution, but he moved. So this person's suspecting that we'll also have the same problem at Counts Massey turning left because of people wanting to go to the new interchange. You see what they're saying? I understand their question. Who wants to take that? I mean, that's more of a, maybe the adaptive light system. I don't know.
Well, I'm not going to be able to say how many cars would go down to Counts Massey and take a left to get to that interchange. I think the way you need to look at the interchange is for everybody in Country Club of Arkansas and all the apartments that currently live on Counts Massey that have to come out at the light at the boulevard and make a left-hand turn. If they took the interchange, then I think that's where your solution is to your traffic problem. You're going to take, and the estimates that we have, and it's in our interchange justification report, is 11,500 cars a day would be using that interchange. So therefore, you know, you're at least taking hopefully 11,000 cars a day off of off of Maumelle Boulevard, which has 43,000 cars a day at the entrance to I-430. And I want to address the comment you made about the 2-lane on-ramp. That's been studied by the Highway Department. The only way that would work is if they widen the 430 bridge. So there's, I don't know what that would cost, but I definitely don't want to pay for that. But that would be the only way that you could do the 2 lanes to the on-ramp, or the 2-lane on-ramp currently, is to do some widening on at least a portion of the bridge.
On Twitter, the question was asked, why is it North Little Rock paying for that? If you're in the audience here, there are some maps where you can see the outline, because it does get very confusing the way that those boundaries are lined up, where North Little Rock and Maumelle jumps in and out of our jurisdiction and then back into Maumelle at the interchange. I have posted that on our Facebook page and put that to the very top of the page. But would anyone like to address the issue of why North Little Rock is not paying for this?
I get every question that nobody else wants to answer. What I can tell you, and I see a hand up, I'm not sure, you want to ask a question, or? Well, you can, but we've got written questions right now that everybody filled out a question beforehand. So hold on. All right. I'll give you my reason why North Little Rock's not participating. Their focus is on Argenta, and their focus is on the East McCain area. But also, if North Little Rock contributes to this project, they'll get part of the revenue. So we would have to give up some of the land that we want to be in Maumelle in order to get North Little Rock to participate. And I don't want to do that. I mean, if we build the interchange, we need to control all of the interchange and then control every corner of it and have it be in our city so that any sales tax that's collected there comes to Maumelle. The Walmart neighborhood, or Walmart Supercenter that's located in North Little Rock, but they call the Maumelle Walmart, brings in over $1 million a year, but we get nothing out of that because it's located in North Little Rock. We've asked them to give us part of their sales tax because it's Maumelle residents shopping there. Mayor Smith refuses to do that. I don't know why, but he does. So I think the same consideration would be if it's in Maumelle, we keep the revenue and we don't get share with North Little Rock.
We have written questions and we're going to ask those first. Okay, you'll get a chance to do that. Okay.
We do not currently, the land on the other side of the interstate is not part of Maumelle currently because we have no access to that area without driving 5 miles around to get to it. But we're working with the property owners, and we're not going to build that interchange unless they agree to annex into Maumelle. So we're not going to build a bridge if they're not a part of Maumelle. And they're not going to agree to annex necessarily unless we pass a sales tax. We're kind of at a little bit of a stalemate. Some of them are agreeable to go ahead and do it, but some are saying, well, I want to see what the sales tax election turns out before I commit to Maumelle. Well, we would have both sides of the interstate and both sides of Counts Massey. Now, there's currently there's an area right where the current Counts Massey roadway ends right now at Short Marche Road. There's a large area right there that's in the county currently. It's a lot of residents. It's 25 houses down there toward the end, trailers and all that. That would stay in the county currently. But if they wanted any services from Maumelle and then retail development went in there, they would have to annex to Maumelle. I mean, and we've got an annexation agreement going to the council Monday night for their approval on at least one property, we think.
And again, a lot of those maps that you just spoke to are up here regarding the proposed annexation lands around the interchange and also posted on our Facebook page. So take a look at those because those are very important to what the mayor just spoke about. All right, next question.
I'm just going to walk out here because they're going to keep doing it. All right. And I don't want you to have to walk away down here because I'm a lot younger. You're not up yet, Mr. Johnson. I'll get to you last. Former Mayor Birch Johnson, you'll be one of those questions after 8 o'clock. Somebody's asking how much of the city's $3.3 million in the street fund will be used as a down payment toward the project. Okay. No. You wrote no, that's it. No. Who wants to take that, Mayor? It sounds like another mayor question. Why don't you grab that mic down there, Alicia? Hang on a second. Let me set up our answer.
Well, there's probably a little bit more context needed to the question.
Is it? Well, then why don't you write that down?
Because there's only about 3 lines on the card. Mr. Mayor, I appreciate you taking questions. At the last town hall, my question was, over the course of 25 years, why is the city's leadership, which you've not been a part of for 25 years, so you're not to blame for the entirety of that, but why have we not prepared to pay for this project over 2.5 decades? So my question now, and your answer to that was basically that with budgets being as tight as they are, it's not feasible to save that much money. So I'll amend my question and ask, with $3.3 million in the city street fund, how much of that would you commit to put toward this project as a down payment so that the brunt of the cost of the project will not fall entirely to the taxpayers to pay new revenue? When anybody in this room buys a house and takes out a mortgage, it's customary to put 20% down, otherwise you're charged PMI. Would you be willing to put some of the money from the city street fund or city reserves toward the project so that the entire cost of the project's not borne by new tax revenue?
I can't make that commitment because it takes the council action in order to do that.
Would you commit to support it?
I would support it. That is correct. And that's part of why we've held a little bit of surplus back. We originally thought if we could come up with 20%, which would have been $2.8 million, we'd get other people to contribute to this. I mean, that's part of what that money's been saved for, is to come up with at least a 20% match for this project. So yes, I would support that. And then it would basically allow us to pay the bonds off early, because of the less amount of money that we may issue the bonds, but may not take all the money at the front end, and you don't have to do that, and therefore pay it off. We also need to save a little bit back for any contingencies or something like that, that if we bid the project and it's slightly more than our estimates right now, there might be some contingencies there, but that would take council action in order to do that. I can't spend that money, or can't personally commit to do that, but I can tell you I would support the council contributing some of the money in the street fund and then keep enough back so that we can handle emergencies and that sort of thing.
Do you have an idea as to how much you think might be appropriate?
I don't know. I would say you could use half of it probably, at least. And so that'd be what, 1.65 or something like that?
I appreciate your commitment to supporting that.
Okay, thank you.
Did you get all your question in? Who was the other rabble rouser back here? You're up.
Mr. Mayor, I was wondering where all this traffic that now goes down the boulevard is going to go when it comes off of 40. Are you going to put it down Counts Massey, or is it going to come down Country Club Parkway?
I can't answer that question because I don't know where they live. So, I mean, the question would be is where do those people live? I'm not going to tell them where to drive. Now, we would put a truck route to where tractor-trailer rigs could not come down Country Club Parkway. They would have to go down Counts Massey. But I can't dictate, and I can't say you got to live in Country Club of Arkansas to drive down Country Club Parkway, because that's a public street.
You've answered my question.
Okay.
Because basically my question was, where are the tractor trailers going to go?
Okay, I didn't hear the tractor-trailer part.
That road's not sufficient for tractors. If you go out there today, you'll see whenever a big truck gets on the country club, it goes across the roundabouts. You can go out there and see the ruts. When you subtract from the asphalt area the bike trail, you don't have enough room. I've seen tractor trailers go down there that have to get up on the median to get around the curves. And so if you're not going to let tractor trailers go down there, I think that's a wonderful thing. And that answers my question.
Well, we will have to allow local deliveries. So such as a moving van or something like that would still have to be allowed down there, but it would be the designated truck route for a through truck could not come down Country Club Parkway.
All right, Mr. Mayor.
Hold it under 10 minutes. I sure will. Only, I obviously am for the project. I think I had some start to it. But there's two things that really bothers me about the whole thing. And number one is we have a ballpark out there. I think it's roughly 40 acres. I'm not everything. And the next door lot owned by the Brown family is another 40 acres. If we ever want to expand, and that's in North Little Rock, we need to get that 40 acres into Maumelle so that if we want to expand and put a swimming pool out there or whatever, you know, we need to get that in to Maumelle. And if North Little Rock's not going to participate, maybe they would give us the opportunity to get the Brown family to agree to annexing us in there. Hey, 40 acres is a lot, and our ball diamond is, I think, approximately 40 acres. And the other problem I had when I was working on this project was beyond I-40. Hey, they told me that they couldn't do anything beyond I-40 other than because there's a railroad over there. And I want Mike to look at this, and they told me this. You get to I-40, or excuse me, go over I-40, then there's a railroad track not far beyond that. And they said there's not a good interchange there over on, I think it's 365. You know, it only could be 2 exits and everything. But all that can be resolved, I'm sure. But the bottom line is, I think this is going to be good for Maumelle if we can get it in.
Thank you, Birch. All right, you have another question right here?
What exactly is the total estimate of completion of this interchange? I mean, the bond is 15 million. Is it estimated to be 14 million? And who estimated it? And if the bond passes, when does the first shovel go in ground?
I wish I had a crystal ball. The engineer's estimate for construction cost is $14 million. Michael Baker Company is our engineers on this project. They did the construction estimate for it. So right now it's at $14 million, and that's what we used for doing the bond, gave to the bond underwriters so that they could calculate the bond amounts. If everything aligned perfectly, if it passed at the ballot, start collection in September, the bonds could be done in October. We could give the highway department the money to move forward with the project, and then they would have to acquire some right-of-way, do some utility relocations, and then the construction could take place. And I would say that's fairly early in 2019. Now, I can't confirm that. I mean, because they're waiting too to see what's going to happen. The highway departments, you know, they're waiting to see what's going to happen on this election also before they expend any work on the right-of-way or any of the utility relocation or anything like that currently. They don't want to do those unless the project is imminent and moving forward. And then I think that was all the questions you asked. Did I answer all of them? And I've talked to District 6 about that. It would move into District 6 basically, and they'd administer it during construction. District 6 is the area that handles just Pulaski County, and so they would have construction inspectors, they would have project managers over the project. And I've asked them would it fit into their schedule because they've got a huge project coming up in Pulaski County, which is called the I-30 crossing. They're going to rebuild all of Interstate 30 bridge and both sides of North Little Rock and Little Rock there. $500 million, $600 million. And they said they could do this project along with those projects. And then they've got another big project over at Cantrell Road, Highway 10.
Yes, ma'am.
Almost all projects go over budget. What's your contingency to cover that?
You're talking about if it goes over budget? Is that what you said? Well, it's kind of back to Mr. Ray's question back here. As soon as the bids would come in, we do have $3.3 million in street fund that the city council could use that. If the bids came in at $15 million, we would have the $1 million to pay any overage in that.
It's going to be so much fun, isn't it? Shovels everywhere. Yes, sir. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I actually have more than one, but they're really quick.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. No speed.
So, no, not at all. These are genuine questions. So, I've lived in Maumelle for 15 years, so please don't misconstrue this. We plan on raising a family here, but I just have some questions I'm really interested to have answers to. So, we had mentioned earlier that there's a build-out kind of capacity for Maumelle, and if we hit that, our current traffic situation will be, absorbent, and we won't be able to handle that. So, do we have any projected date on when we would hit the max capacity of availability here? Is it 5 years? Is it 20 years? Is it 50 years? Well, I mean, we have a current rate of growth right now, right? So.
Well, we do, and if the current rate of growth on the available lands, and I guess you're talking about build out of what's existing in Maumelle today.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
I can only give you a range because we were building 300 houses a year at one point in time. Now we're doing close to 90 houses a year or something like that. So if it ever took off again, it would accelerate to that point. And hopefully that's what would occur if the interchange is built. But I think we're talking at least 15 years before you would see build out of what's existing in Maumelle if we continue at the same rate of growth that we're doing now.
Okay, fair enough. So this is preemptive. So you had also mentioned, the fellow over here, I didn't catch his name, but he mentioned that if we were disciplined enough to pay off our debts early, with the bonds and everything. But my question is, if we were that disciplined, could we save the money and pay cash in advance rather than pave the road and hope they come?
No, because they're voting on the project, so you can't vote on it. Let's vote on it, but let's not build it for 20 years or whatever, collect on it. So you got to vote on the project itself that we build. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that's possible.
So we couldn't pass the tax now and then build the project once we have the money saved, as opposed to...
Well, I wouldn't recommend that, because if you wait that long, your construction cost is going to be 25% more if you waited 15 years or something like that. So if you get the money, you need to build the project as quick as possible.
Okay, two more really, really quick ones.
That would not be permissible with the way the ballots are currently written. They are written for the bonds. That sales tax is dedicated to repay the bonds and issue the bonds. So as it's currently written, that would not even be legal.
Okay, fair enough. I'm just curious. And we've had a lot of studies done on the area, and you mentioned study, and I'm just curious about the types of studies that we've done, because I know you didn't go into all the detail, but what data did we do, or what surveys have we done to support how much development takes place in an area after an interchange goes in? Because the gentleman from the real estate agency mentioned several things that he'd been involved in, mentioned that there's lots of people that are willing to study that and hope there's enough traffic there to support their business. So do we have any data that would support if we build this, they will come?
We don't have any of that data. We have what the economists told us when we did our strategic plan in 2013, that if we don't get more retail, you're going to have to raise taxes just to provide the basic services that you're providing right now. And so we don't have a study saying that there's going to be X amount. It's just like, in 2007, if you would have had a study done and then the recession hit in 2008, all your numbers would have been totally off then. So
I agree, but there would be some kind of a data point that would suggest a potential growth.
But we have not done that.
Okay, I'm going to have to wrap you up.
Just one more quick one.
So you got 4 questions.
I apologize. So just one. This is it, and then I'll be.
Maybe you'll be alive when all this happens. So go ahead.
The other question was studies about the traffic. You guys had mentioned that there was like 11,000 cars. Are those studies available for us to read for ourselves?
I have one copy. I can make you a copy of that study. Here's the, I would rather not make a lot of copies. Hang on, no, it's this one.
I think the Department of Transportation has those studies as well.
This is the interchange justification report right there. It's packed with figures, data. You're welcome to come to my office and spend all day if you want to read it. Or I can, if you want to pay for getting a copy made, I'll let you make a copy of it. All right.
Do we have any other Twitter questions come in, Josh? No? I think we're about to wrap it up. All these people. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get to people that haven't already asked a question. People are wearing me out.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I think you stated that construction couldn't begin till early 2019 on the interchange.
I don't think it's feasible. I don't think it's possible to do it before then, no, sir.
Was it not the reason we were having an early election is to start before the winter set in?
No, sir, it was not. If we don't have the early, sir?
That's been stated before.
By who?
That we need an early election so that we can get started before winter sets in.
I've never said that. I can't
speak for... It was stated at the last meeting.
Sir?
It was stated at the last meeting.
Okay. I don't think so, but I don't remember stating that. What it is I stated that if we need it early so that we can start collecting the money so that we can move forward with the project in September. The earliest we'll collect any money from that sales tax when it passes in March is September. If you waited another 2 months, you would move that all the way to January of the next year.
One other question. Mr. Mazzoni equated our situation to that of the Bass Pro interchange.
No, that was Mr. Hathaway.
Mr. Hathaway, I'm sorry. He also stated that that was paid for by private developers. Now, the developers here stand to gain quite a bit if we pass this tax. Have they offered to contribute anything towards it? Thank you.
And there are no current developers right now in that area. There's landowners, but not necessarily developers.
Okay, do we have another one over here? Well, yeah, we've had his questions. Trying to get to everybody. Okay, time for about, this will be about our last question.
I'm not going to be long. Good evening and thank you. As far as the feasibility studies and the different audits and the documents that we're asking to view, is there any way that you could post those documents on the internet so that we can look at them at our leisure? And if you can, would you like some assistance in scanning those documents into a PDF file so they can be made available?
Well, I'm not going to commit to that. I'll see what we can do. The problem is I don't have the way to take them apart and put them back together necessarily. But let me get with our engineers, and they may have them in a PDF document and see if we can post it. Now we got 2 weeks before the election, so it's going to be a little bit taxing, but we'll try to get it done and get it posted. If it does, we'll have them put it on their Facebook page. You're welcome.
Okay, is it 8 o'clock yet? Have I missed tip-off? Almost. These people will hang around to answer
There is one
questions.
document that is actually loaded on the city website, and that is the strategic plan. And that goes to the economists that came in here years ago and some of the things of why we are here today. So that is on the website. It's on Maumelle Forward. I can't remember which tab it is, but it is loaded. You got to search it. But it's called Maumelle Forward, the Maumelle Strategic Plan. So that is a document that is currently loaded into the system with all kinds of fun numbers and information.
But these people will hang around if anybody wants to come visit with them one-on-one. I think maybe that's probably a better avenue for some of you who want to have a discussion. But anyway, I thank you for coming. I think it's great we have this much interest in this issue and any issue in Maumelle. And let me plug our expo, which is, I can't believe you didn't plug it. You're going to plug it? Okay, I'm done then. I'll let Alicia
Again,
plug it.
thank you so much for joining us this evening, and thank you for the viewers. We had about 70 or so people who watched this evening, so we hope to get the information out to the residents of Maumelle. We do want to let everyone know that we are having a Maumelle Expo on March the 1st at the Jess Odom Community Center from 2 until 6 p.m. It's a great opportunity for you to come and meet the businesses, the residents, the nonprofits, and the organizations that support this community. Again, it is about support, it is about our community, and it is important. Again, as we've talked over and over again, let's control our destiny. The Chamber of Commerce would like to thank you again. Please drive carefully and try and stay dry. Have a great night.
And attendance is free.
Attendance is free. Oh, you can win $1,000.
That's right. I'll see you on the boulevard.
Again, the panel will be up here. If you have any specific questions you'd like to ask us, please take a look at the maps and have a great night.